Afternoon and welcome to today's Way Forward Workshop Leader Lunch Break, where we are thrilled to have Rosemary Mudry join the conversation. It was just last November that Rosemary was announced as the new and first Executive Director of the Westside Market. When selected, Mayor Bibb recognized her as a seasoned community development professional with a proven track record in building and leading high-performance teams, working closely with community stakeholders, and delivering on strategic priorities. A Cleveland native, she rose from a pool of candidates in a national search. The task before her is large. The goal is to make the Westside Market the premier public market in the country. She must build a nonprofit where none existed, but fueled with experience and her personal love of the market, she is up to the challenge. Rosemary is well-versed in community development, having led West Park CAM's neighborhood development organization, where she served its 25,000 residents. Prior to that, she served as Director of Neighborhood Development of Old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation. She also wields experience in marketing, service, and retail sales from supporting her husband's Midnight Owl Brewing Company in Shaker Heights. The Westside Market is home to more than 60 small local business owners and has more than 800,000 visitors annually. Rosemary has been one of those regular visitors since high school and sees the vision for what the market can be. A Clevelander by birth, she has lived in Old Brooklyn, West Park, Ohio City, and now Glenville. Rosemary, thank you for joining us today and sharing your vision for the market.
Thanks so much, Marianne and Cleveland Leadership Center for having me. I'm so pleased to be here today and sharing a little bit about the market's future with all of you. I'm going to share my screen real quick. So for those of you who may have not been following along as closely, 2 years ago or a little over that, Mayor Bibb articulated the Westside Market as one of his top priorities. When he took office, he appointed Jessica Trevisano as his top leader and strategist. And as part of that, they worked together along with a cohort of community leaders to develop a plan for the future of the market. How can the market be a sustainable place for the next 100 years? How can we preserve the magic of the market while also ensuring and shoring up its future? So leading up to that, in 2023, the nonprofit formed, and I was delighted to join the team as the first staff member of the team in January of 2024. So what's been happening over the last few months? Since January, I had the task of creating an organization from scratch. So creating a bank account, hiring a team, developing a plan, and really, most importantly, preparing for a management transition of the day-to-day operations of the market. As part of that, I spent some time with merchants, learning about the operations, of course, absorbing everything we could from the city staff who had been here for so long, working with board members who have been passionate about this project for the last couple years, and then getting my staff on board. Most of them started between March and April, and were on board for only a few weeks before we took over day-to-day operations in late April. And so what have we been doing? What does day-to-day operations look like? Well, my team has been sort of learning the rhythm and the flow of the place. We kicked off our sort of transition with a deep clean of the market. We cleaned the walls and the tile and some of the things that maybe you don't notice every day, but just tried to shine up the place a little bit. Our team has also been focused on thinking about communications with merchants. How do we be partners with them? How do we learn from them? How do we communicate better? What are the tools and protocols we need in place to ensure that we have a strong operating model? Some things that we launched that were public facing was an e-newsletter. We've had our first e-newsletter out, and we're gearing up to engage more with the public in the coming times. Part of my job, I've got this great team in place. So part of my job is really spending my time thinking about the master plan. And so I think Jessica had visited with folks maybe about a year ago and talked a little bit about this, but really the plan the plan came together in place to think about the market's future. It's been operating for 112 years. It has systems that are out of date. The operating model currently reveals a large subsidy that's required by the city of Cleveland. It's not operating sustainably. So looking at the master plan, one of the biggest pieces is thinking about what are the physical and operational changes we need to make in order for the market to thrive in the 21st century and beyond. And so some of that is developing new revenue streams. Some of that is improving merchant experience and the ability for vendors to operate. And some of that is improving the customer experience. And so what does that really look like? How does that all come together? So that comes together in a few different ways. The plan is about $60 million, and it includes restoring the infrastructure. So while you see in the market hall all of the vendors operating, beneath that, there's a basement that's equally large, which is really the heart of the market, that has all kinds of walk-in coolers. It has the building systems, the boiler, all of that. And most of that requires a complete renovation. So that's a big piece of the job, is renovating all of those behind the scenes infrastructure pieces so that the merchants can really operate in an efficient and effective way to continue delivering great product. It's also about enhancing the market experience and reimagining a lot of the spaces that are underutilized in the market. Anyone who's visited has had the chance to maybe eat a bratwurst over a trash can or on a bench in trash alley. And so thinking about, there's all these amazing foods, but nowhere to relax and enjoy them. So part of our work is thinking about how do we create spaces for people to actually enjoy the magic of the market, enjoy the beauty of the market. And so that includes a few critical changes. So one of the changes is consolidating the produce arcade. So produce folks will be in one wing, and then the other wing will become a food hall, which will allow for us to kind of diversify the offerings of the market with prepared foods. It will also include a landscaped courtyard with seating so that folks can enjoy the market, enjoy the outdoors in the summertime. And in the food hall, there'll also be seating integrated as well as into the market. One of the other things I'm really excited about that kind of supports both our mission and our revenue generation is converting the old men's and women's locker room into an event space and a teaching kitchen. And what this really will allow us to do is the possibilities are endless. So some of the things it will allow us to do are spend time, hosting events, maybe think about a corporate retreat, or you could even have your wedding there. And so those would be revenue generating opportunities where the kitchen could serve as a catering kitchen, but it would also allow us to do a lot of mission oriented things. We could teach cooking classes. We can serve as the regional food hub for conversations about locally grown food or our food system or food resiliency in that space. And then it also provides the opportunity to engage with the next generation of Cleveland. So think about K through 12 school programming. Right now, folks come on a tour and they maybe grab a few products, they talk about the market. If there's time, one of our staff come and say hello, but we could actually build out a full program where people can shop in the market. Kids can then come learn about food, learn about the food system, but then they can also have the chance to have a hands-on experience prepping food, cutting vegetables, tasting things. The teaching kitchen also is an exciting opportunity for our merchants who really deliver and add value to the Cleveland regional food scene by offering unique products, different cuts of meat, unique produce, all of those kinds of things. And so they're excited for the possibility of being able to teach people how to prepare a unique kind of fish or a unique kind of produce. And so this really becomes a space that embodies really what the market is about and connects broadly with the community. So what else is happening? Part of my role, I've got this great team in place who are helping us live our mission now. And part of my role is thinking about how do we implement this intense master plan. Let me go back for a second. And some of the ways that we're looking at it is there's two sides of it, is really now we're gearing up how do we implement it? We need $60 million. So one side of it is fundraising, and the other side of it is thinking through the actual logistics of the project. How do we get this done while ensuring that 70 small businesses can still operate in the market? So my attention has been spent in the last couple months, and will be in the next in the coming year, thinking through how do we raise additional dollars. It's, I think, really important to recognize that council, and the mayor's administration led with this plan and wanted to see the market have a sustainable path forward, but they recognize that the deferred maintenance and other things require their leadership. So they committed $20 million. And then we've also seen the state commit dollars to the project, and Senator Sherrod Brown's office is helping us pursue an earmark, a federal earmark. So I think it really shows the sort of breadth of importance of the market in the regional and state community. But now I have to turn my attention to how do we fill that gap of the other $30 million. And so I'm spending time looking at philanthropy. And then a big piece of my work is how do we pursue tax credits, both new markets tax credits and historic tax credits. And so that requires a lot of interesting logistics, and that's a bit of what my time is spent on. On the other side is the logistical side, and I think that's where some of the exciting things will kind of come about in the next 6 months. Is we're assembling an architecture and engineering team who will begin to translate the master plan into schematics, into full construction documents, and bring on a construction partner to help us work with merchants and vendors and think about how do we actually leverage these dollars? How do we put this project together in a really efficient way so that we can get all of this done within the budget? And so that's some of the work you'll see coming out of CPMC in the next few months. But I also want to talk about, how do we live our mission now, right? We have this amazing vision. We have $60 million in renovation, but what's going to happen in the meantime, right? We're not going to renovate the basement overnight. It's going to take several years to make this project happen. So one of the things I'm really excited about is thinking about, as the nonprofit, how can we connect with the passion and love of the broader Cleveland community of the market? How can we engage them in supporting the market, in cultivating new customers? And so we're in the process of kicking off a really exciting chef series where local chefs from across Northeast Ohio are coming to the market. They're preparing a dish that's entirely sourced from the market, and then we video them preparing it. And that will kind of roll out every few weeks from our office. So that's one of the things I'm excited about is part of our mission is being a hub for the regional food scene. And so beginning to bring folks in who are playing in the food community that love the market and can help connect all the different pieces of the food system together is really important. Another piece is sort of the programmatic side and the mission-oriented side of better connecting folks with food access. And so we've already engaged in conversations and are working on some partnerships with Ohio City Inc. and Spicefield Kitchen around nutrition education in the neighborhood. And then we've been working with FAIR, Food Access Raises Everyone. They've already done some produce perks programs in our in the market, which provides low-income folks with the opportunity to access fresh produce through coupons. But we're also developing some new partnerships with them that might be able to engage young people in the market and better connect even more folks to fresh food. As a customer, what else is coming down the pipeline in the short term? Later in July, you'll see we've got a temporary patio coming up, and the goal of this patio is just to sort of help folks see what the market can be in the future, give a little taste of what the master plan will do for the market. And so in conjunction with that patio, there'll be some opportunities for day stall vendors and some pop-ups and some additional programming to go along with that. So I think I'm wrapping up my portion of the chat today. I hope you all keep following along with us, sign up for the newsletter, and stay in touch, because it's really going to be a community-wide effort to take the market to the next level and go where we want to go. So we hope you'll stay engaged and keep in touch. So Rachel, I'm ready for questions whenever you are.
Great, Rosemary, thank you. So, what has been the initial response from the merchants of kind of the transition, and how have you been able to win the trust of the vendors?
That's a great question. So I think trust is a process. I think some of them are, there's a range of folks who have been advocating for a transition to nonprofit for a long time. And so, I think some of those folks are the most eager and on board and understand that it's going to be a process. We're not going to get everything right, the first time, but hopefully we'll all stay in communication and we'll kind of work through the kinks as they come about. So I think, from the merchant side, it ranges from like super enthusiastic, super optimistic to there have been a lot of promises over the last decade, and this is just one more promise. And so they're wary. And I think that's a legitimate feeling. And I think it probably is going to take, longer to win them over. And, for some folks, the change may be scary and, they're not sure if they like what's happening. And I think it'll just take time. In terms of building trust, I think one of the things we're trying to do is really work on our communication. And, I think some areas we've done really, really well with, and other areas we have to keep working on. But my hope is that they know that it's an open door. They know that they can share anything with us. And most importantly, that like we're here and we respond, whether or not we're always going to be able to do the thing that they most want, that may or may not happen, but at least we'll be upfront with them. We'll tell them why we can do it. We'll give them a timeline, and we'll stay engaged. And I think those are some of the things that I hope will build trust over time and help show them that we're here to support them, because this really is a partnership. Without them, we don't succeed, but without us, they also don't succeed. And so we have to kind of play from the same team. And I'm not sure, there's a lot of baggage that has come to this point. And so I think we're all kind of learning together on what does it mean to be on the same team.
Looking at the visitor side, what does your visitor data look like, and how are you looking to grow that through the changes that you're seeing?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So we're kind of broken, not quite into thirds, but about a third of folks are sort of your grocery shoppers, regular shoppers, local shoppers. Probably 40 to 50% of folks are residents of the city of Cleveland. Maybe another third, 25% to third are sort of regional shoppers, so folks coming from the suburbs, and they range a lot. Some of those folks come down really regularly, but many of them maybe come down a few times a year, or when they have family in town or friends in town, and they want to show off the gems of Cleveland, and so the West Side Market usually makes the list. And then the final group is another quarter to a third of true tourists, so folks from outside the region, the 6-county region, and those folks are they have a different experience, right? They can't take, 5 steaks home and cook them up. So I think as we're looking at the future, we're not paying attention just to one segment. It's about how do we enhance the experience of all these segments and ensure that, folks who are at the market to get groceries are able to enjoy their experience. They're able to shop efficiently, and not bogged down by a tourist trap, but at the same time recognize the really important role that tourists and visitors play in supporting the market as well. For me, I think some of the seating options and those kinds of things will help us leverage all of those segments, but particularly the sort of suburban, regional, and tourist folks who right now, there's nowhere for them to go but wander around. And so I think they'll be able to kind of enjoy the market in a more leisurely way, but also that will open up space for folks who are doing serious shopping to be able to engage and get through the market more efficiently. In terms of a marketing plan, I think, we've started slow with the e-newsletter, keeping people in touch, doing the chef series. And I think our goal is to just reintroduce folks who maybe see the market as like a once in a while destination. How do we convert more of those folks into more regular shoppers? So if you come twice a year, how do you start coming 4, 6, 8 times a year, because you see it as more than just a place to show off.
Can you speak to efforts that you have in the works around ensuring that the market is a place of equitable access and inclusion for all in our community, including our BIPOC community?
Yeah, so the market has historically not been super racially diverse. And I think that's one of our charges of our mission is how do we make the market more reflective of Cleveland? I think our shoppers are more diverse than our merchants. And so thinking through what does that look like while we're also embarking on some major construction projects. But I think in the long run, in the long run, I think the goal is, as we're thinking through how we add merchants and how we add vendors, is doing outreach so that we are proactive in who we're cultivating to join the market, as opposed to reactive in the sense that, the city just had a leasing email and, I think they were thoughtful about, they didn't just like, here you go, here's the keys to your stand, but they weren't, they were just taking the folks that came to them and sorting through them. And I think we have to be really intentional about building relationships with different neighborhoods, with different communities. And so in the long term, I think it's really about diversifying, the long-term merchants. But in the short term, I think there's other things we can do through sort of the day stall or pop-up model where we can begin to, maybe somebody has a small boutique or they've been working out of their house in a Cleveland neighborhood. Well, as we can build relationships with community development corporations, with Hispanic Business Center, with other ECDI, with other of the sort of folks in the community that are in small business development, I think we can invite folks in and use the market as a platform for helping support them. So even if they're only here a day, our reach, when we promote something, our reach is thousands and thousands. And so if somebody spends a day here and we highlight them on social media, we can still highlight that they have a spot in Glenville or that they have a spot, in Clark Fulton. And so I think some of those are ways that we want to be intentional and inclusive. I think it's also thinking about the food offerings and the kind of, classes and programming we offer in the future. Is that, do they appeal to and do they cultivate a wide range of sort of the Cleveland cultural diaspora?
And building upon relationships and the collaborations, how might you be working with the surrounding organizations and businesses around the West Side market? And what is your hope for what you're able to do and have impact in Ohio City?
So in Ohio City, I think, West 25th Street is, has experienced tremendous change over the last decade. And I think we all have to kind of continue to work together to make Ohio City feel welcoming to all. And so I think, I don't know that we have the exact ways that we'll work together, but I think, there's a lot of breweries and restaurants and things like that. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to highlight the folks in Ohio City who engage with the market and how they use the market and tell those stories as well.
So a question that's come up a few times, especially as you look around the renovations of the building, is around climate control. West Side Market, air conditioning, what are the plans?
So the plans do include changes to the HVAC system. I think the building is 112 years old, has been built a certain way. And so figuring out how to better condition the building, particularly in the summer, is important. So, the produce arcade in particular is one area where we know it's really critical, not just from a customer experience, but from the merchant side for their product and product quality. It's very challenging when it's 95 degrees out for them to, their product might be beautiful and wonderful at 8 a.m., but by 4 p.m., they're constantly bringing it up from the coolers in the basement to try to keep product fresh and cool. So HVAC is certainly an important piece of that. And figuring out how to do that in a way, especially in the market hall, it's such a large volume of space, figuring out how to do that in a way where you're not also wasting a lot of resources. So what is like a sustainable way to do that? And so there's a few conversations on the table, and I think that's something that we'll dig into more with the engineering team, is exactly how we do that. But our sort of project management consultants have already been having some conversations about, sort of the most effective methods of cooling the spaces that really need to be cooled, as opposed to trying to bring the overall temperature of like the market hall down for, nobody at the ceiling needs it to be icy cold, right? So.
What inspiration do you draw from other successful markets around the country?
So I think, we're lucky in Ohio. We have a few markets, and in the Midwest in general. So, they're all slightly different models, but from Detroit to Columbus to Findlay Market and Cincinnati, I think all of them have these nonprofit management teams. And I think Findlay has done a great job of, living its mission and also being a catalyst for development around them. And I think Detroit has also been really creative in thinking about how they play a role in the regional farm system and agriculture community. And so I think some of those are sort of the more regional inspiration about how can nonprofit, like a nonprofit, lead to better integration into the broader community, into that, and lean really heavily into that mission focused work. And then I think broadly, places like Pike's Place and Reading and Philadelphia, like those are the other sort of gem huge markets across the nation. And we want to compete with them. We want, when people talk about the 2 or 3 public markets across the United States, we want to be mentioned with them. And so they've had many years of operating successfully and thinking about how to be resilient. And I think that's, those are the sort of inspirations for me.
So as you look ahead beyond fundraising, what are some of the greatest needs that you see coming for the market, and how can those in the community support you and your team to meet those needs?
That's a great question. So fundraising is obviously a critical need, but I think for us, it's also just continuing to support the merchants. I think if you can do one thing, it's shop and shop regularly, support the merchants, and I think recognize that a transition isn't a day-long thing, that it's going to be a process. And so, we love to hear your feedback, but also, ask for a little bit of patience as we, work through the kinks or when there are challenges. But I think that the most critical thing is spending time here and spending your dollars with the merchants. To me is the best way to support the market, is showing them that you are here for them in the long run. And especially once we do start implementing the master plan, construction is going to be challenging for them, even though we're going to work as hard as we can not to disrupt them. So I think it's sort of staying with them, making sure you're here and being a part of the process throughout the next couple of years is what we could most ask for. And we hope that there'll be some volunteer and other opportunities, in the next 6 months or so, but we're still kind of working out what those would look like.
And so that we know when to show up and shop and support the merchants, what days are the market open and the hours?
Sure. So the market is open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday from 8 to 5, and Sundays from 10 to 4. Historically, the market, folks always ask, like, why is the market closed on Tuesdays and Thursdays? Historically, the downtown market was open on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so the West Side market was open Mondays and Wednesdays, and then they were both open on the weekend, so as not to compete with each other. Obviously, that market no longer exists, but that sort of historical rhythm has been maintained, and many of the businesses have now built sort of their operations around that model, and who knows what the future holds, but for now, those are the hours.
Rosemary, thank you so much. It's clear you have a lot of work ahead of you, but we are confident that you are up for the task, and we look forward to great things happening there on the corner of West 25th and Lorraine. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Marian. Thanks to everyone for having me and coming and joining this conversation. It's been a pleasure, and I hope I get to see many of you at the market and talk a little bit more in person.